Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. This is Healing Talks. I'm going live today with my friend Marina, otherwise known as Sum of All Positive. She's a coach, she's an integrative nutritionist, and she has just joined us. Welcome, Marina. I'm going to invite you in just a moment. Welcome everyone who's just joined us. Hey Giselle, hey Henna, hey Philippe. Good to see
Hi,
you. How are you? How's everything going?
I'm great. How are you? Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. I am super excited for this talk because, just reading your description, you do so much. Well, this is healing talk. You have like so many healing modalities up your sleeve. You have so many ways to help others heal that I'm really excited to see how you bring that all together in your coaching. Just letting some people join us right now. We've got Shweta, who's just joined us. And I am so excited for everyone who's here with us. This is my friend Marina. She's joining us all the way from Tulum, Mexico, right? If I'm not mistaken.
That's where I'm at. Yeah.
That is amazing. I met you here in Miami thanks to our friend Patrick at the Light Club here in Miami,
Mhm.
Florida. And I would just love to know how you ended up here in Miami because I know you're not from here originally, and how you got started on this amazing journey that you're on. I kind of
Yeah,
have a bit
definitely.
of FOMO right now. I'm not gonna lie. Every time I think back to how we met and where you are right now and how far you've come, I'm just so proud of you. I'm just so happy for you.
Mm.
And I want to get everyone here on Healing Talks to know about your journey and what it is that you do. And so we can promote you, we can highlight what you're up to in the community and also in the global community. So go ahead, go for it. Love to hear more about what.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I know we met in Miami, but I am a little bit of a nomad now since the pandemic started, really. So I was based in New York. It's where I was building my coaching practice part-time until the pandemic started. So for me, really, the pandemic shifted pretty much everything. I left New York, where I was for 3 years prior. I left my corporate job, so I left my 9 to 5. I decided it was the right time to do so. I left a relationship that I was in at that point for a year, and I came over to Tulum. So I spent 3 months here at the end of 2020. Then I made my way to Miami. Love Miami. Very similar community, so wellness focused. We all saw that Miami is the healthiest city in America, which is amazing. I agree with that completely. And ever since then, I've just been nomadic. So I like to spend my time in places that really inspire me, Miami being one, Tulum being another. I spent some time around Mexico in about six other places around Mexico. Over the past year, traveled to Guatemala, Lake Atitlan for just a little bit. So yeah, I'm just on my own adventure, building my business in wellness at the same time as visiting these amazing places with so many like-minded people. And before, so I mentioned that I quit my corporate job at the start of the pandemic in April of 2020. Up to that point, I was building my coaching business for about 2 or 3 years, at the same time as I was in corporate, experiencing my own stressful journey with burnout, with adrenal fatigue, with all the things. But luckily, that is actually what I focus on today. So, yes, I do quite a few things with my health coaching practice as far as healing modalities go. I think a lot of amazing friends have been on your talks as well in the past, and we share a lot of those healing modalities. So I'm an integrative nutrition health coach. I am a yoga teacher, meditation coach, and I guide breathwork experiences. And really, everything that I have been doing, even up until the pandemic, was focused on nervous system regulation and helping people let go of stress. So, whether that's through nutrition, through mindfulness, through movement, through mind body practices, it's all focused on reducing stress and burnout. I work with a lot of corporate professionals now, just coming from the background that I was. I'm well versed in what happens to us when we're under stress and when we go, in that place for so long, and the body starts to really break down in a number of different ways. So I focus in my health coaching practice on helping people just come back to wholeness. So mind, body, and emotional health is something that I focus on. And then the last layer, kind of the newest way that I work with people, is through psychedelic therapy. So I know you and I chatted about that just a little bit. Within the bounds of what's allowed to be shared on Instagram, I'm trying to share about that more and more on my page for those who are interested. But I am a microdosing coach, and I also work with an at-home ketamine therapy startup for prescription-based treatment for depression and anxiety. So really my work kind of spans, starting from stress all the way to burnout. And both of these things do impact our mental health over time. So then going all the way to those who experience depression and anxiety, kind of learning the full spectrum of that. And I really call it mind body health, because it's not just about our mental health. It's not just about our physical health. It's about the connection between the two and healing both in tandem. So.
Right on. And, we've got about 4 people who are viewing us right now. If you're watching us right now and you deal with stress, you deal with anxiety, give us a thumbs up, give us a little a wave or something, because it is rampant right now in our society. I think, just for me personally, I this year I've decided to get a social media person, because this social media thing is a double-edged sword for people like ourselves, where we get our word out, we get what we do out through social media most of the time, or at least I do. And I can also get sucked into being in the app and not doing anything that's productive or that's just time consuming. And we're going to talk about the psychedelics, because I've been in ayahuasca ceremonies, I've been in psilocybin ceremonies. I recently did San Pedro, which was amazing. So revealing and so healing, that ceremony. And I have a lot of questions to ask you about ketamine, because that's something that I've kind of I put on my blacklist. That's not plant medicine. That's not a good substance to be putting into your body. So I would love you to inform me more about that, because something that I've been working on is my own self-love journey, and also going from a space of less criticism and more understanding. So I want to understand these things a little bit better. But yeah, I think there's so many distractions. You got social media, you got your phone, the news is 24/7. There's wars happening. And if you're not careful about what you consume, it's not just about what you put in your mouth, it's what you watch, it's what you listen to. If you're not careful about what you consume and how often you consume it, and if you're not careful, if you're not conscious of how you treat yourself, how you talk with yourself, and the things that you do with yourself every single day, then you can really go down a dark path of anxiety, depression, and all sorts of things. And a lot of this stuff isn't diagnosed. There's a lot of people just living with this stuff and afraid to even talk about it. So we have a couple of comments here. I actually really appreciate everyone's participation. Let's see.
It's awesome.
French 333 says, I like microdosing the psilocybin. And I've heard about that. I have some friends that are experimenting with microdosing psilocybin, and I would love for you to tell us what the benefits of that are. And we have someone who says, hey, Marina, what kind of healing do you do? Well, what kind of healing doesn't she do? That's the
Quite a few things. So integrative nutrition, meditation, yoga, breathwork, and then psychedelic therapy. So really everything that's focused on healing our nervous system from chronic stress.
Yeah. So let's talk about, I want to talk about, I don't know how much you want to share about your own personal journey, because I think that we all, as healers or facilitators for healing, we've all been in one way or another inspired to practice what we practice and what we teach, because it worked for us. So I know you were in the corporate world for quite some time, up until 2020, if you want to talk about that. And then also leading into what you see with your clients, the people that you're working with. What are you noticing? If you have any trends that you want to talk about as far as stress, anxiety, bipolar disorder, what are you seeing that is rampant right now in our society, and what can we do in order to help ourselves heal?
Yeah, so starting with my own journey, I was in corporate for about 7 years. And what's interesting is I work with a lot of high achievers and people who just never stop. And for many of us in today's world, yes, the pandemic was definitely a very unique situation and everything that we've been through over the past 2 years. But leading up to the pandemic, so many of us are in stress starting from childhood, starting from, trying to achieve in sports, the college that we want to get into, jumping straight into, at least for us, in America, straight into your first career, never taking time off. It's like we start to go down that path of chronic stress when we're like 10 years old. And so I definitely never had a break. I went from undergrad into grad school, into my first job, into my second job, and with that responsibility keeps growing and growing. New York life, I don't think helped things a whole lot because it's always on the go. It's so competitive. You're always expected to be at your best, and not just in your career, but also with friends and socially. And we want to maintain a relationship, and we want to work out, and we want to be in shape. So there's just so many demands that we place on ourselves that I definitely was, until I finally just had a chance to slow down when the pandemic started. So I think for myself, despite all that added mental, emotional stress that was coming from it, I did have quite a bit of just physical relief that I felt. And through that, I was able to think more clearly. And, up to that point, I've gained so many skills where I felt that it was time to really fully start sharing that with the world. So stress started to become one of the most prevalent things, and mental health that we were all starting to focus on by, summer of 2020 with everything that was going on. So that's when I decided to pivot and, take on this career 100% of the time. And what I want to highlight is exactly what you said. A lot of times us healers are inspired to share from our own experience. And I always want to mention that it's a continuous journey. Like I've come so far from like my lowest points in corporate. During those times, I was having just really bad anxiety. I was having 3 cups of coffee a day, having trouble sleeping, having heart palpitations from the stress and from the caffeine. And I was coping with everything by way of alcohol. That was my kind of conditioned coping mechanism of choice back from college. So, a lot of times, again, these things are with us for decades, and we just live in that state, not knowing that it could get so much better. So while I have undone and healed so much of my own stress and the toll that it was having on my body, it's still very much a journey. And actually, in my work and in my personal healing journey, I've reached this point of working with psychedelics more and more. And first, I actually never thought that I would be working in the space. It's about 5 months old for me to be fully in the space, having clients in the space. It all started with my own journey, though. When I came to Tulum was really the first time that I was able to experience some profound healing with the use of psychedelics. So very similar to you, a lot of ceremonial, really traditional medicines like ayahuasca, but then also really seeing, what benefit is there from trying different things. And I love that you're open-minded. We should definitely share that in common. I think it takes a lot along the lines of being open-minded anytime that we're looking to take on anything new or alternative, right? I mean, for many people, even acupuncture is a stretch, and believing that it works when we know that it really does. Breathwork is another one of those things, right? Where it's like very new, uncertain. How is this working? What's going on in my body? I always like to break down exactly what's happening to you during my breathwork sessions, to explain to people that it's all okay, and this is exactly the ways in which we are healing. So with psychedelics, I definitely approach them very cautiously. But I think once I experienced what was possible for myself, even after the years of growth through yoga, through mindfulness, through nutrition, and all the ways, it's like there was even more left. And now I'm just kind of accepting that it's always going to be there. The work continues. And yeah, that's kind of how I found myself in the space that I'm in now, of just combining all these different things with the focus of helping more people heal from stress and anxiety. Um,
In my
and then as
last,
mhm.
I just
Go
wanted
ahead.
to share that last ceremony. The message was, in order to really, really help others, if you want to help other people heal, first heal yourself. That was
Yeah.
the big, that's why I think it's so important to start these healing talks with your journey, because, and I love the vulnerability that you're saying, hey, yeah, I am teaching this, I am coaching people in these modalities, but I still have quite a bit of ways to go. But you're also
Mm-hmm.
acknowledging the journey. You're also seeing how far you've come. Tom says, this
Mm-hmm.
sounds amazing. Can't say for the rest. I hope I can listen to you a recording. Yes, Tom, we're going to upload this to my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Lewis in Motion. And I'm also going to take a clip from this interview, a 1-minute clip, and I'm going to post it on my main page here on Instagram. So thank you for joining, Tom. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And yeah, we appreciate all of you. We have another question. Hey, Marina, do you protect yourself before you start healings? Yeah, well, I don't really want to get too much into that, but I think that yes, because we are working with energies. But I just want to say that nothing has power over you unless you give it power. So
I love that.
if you know that, you know, this is, I'm a sovereign human being, nothing has power over me unless I give it power. If there's no doors open for that, then I don't think anything can come in or will come in. I've been a part of many ceremonies. I'm also around a lot of people every single day, and I just do my best to protect myself. So I'd like to hear your answer though. What do you think? Do
Yeah.
you have any rituals, any practices to protect yourself?
Yeah, so the way that I work with people, and we haven't mentioned this yet, but oh yeah, I'm also a healer. Yes, thank you for being on. Yes,
Awesome.
I'm also a Reiki practitioner, but I don't use that as much, not in person. And the psychedelic work that I do is actually also not in person, it's all virtual. And people are probably like, what? How does that work? So, this is maybe a segue into, also speaking more on ketamine as well. So, traditional ceremonies are amazing. If you have the ability to go into a place, of healing, whether that might be abroad, like in places like Tulum, Peru, the Amazon, I think that's an amazing opportunity. But I think that is still reserved to very few people, right? Maybe 1% of people will ever have the funds, the ability, the desire, the stamina to experience something like that. And the company that I work with, we're really interested in how can we make this treatment more accessible to more people. So we know that things like ayahuasca, psilocybin, and other plant medicines, they work because they actually help us first shed a lot of physical and emotional stress and trauma that we hold and store in the body. And they also do work on the level of the brain. They act on our brain chemistry. Different substances act on different parts and different pathways in the brain. There's an hour where I can talk just on that. The DMT family, psilocybin, ketamine, MDMA, all of these are different categories of substances. When we talk about, their chemical structure, they act on the brain in very different ways. All have a positive effect that they ultimately have the potential to lead to. That's where we feel that that glowing, loving, positive emotion after participating in a ceremony. There's many layers to why that is. And one of them is the effect that it's actually having on wiring our brain towards more positivity, more love. Serotonin, dopamine, all of these things are released, again, depending on the medicine. Now, to what I was saying earlier, though, even for me being here in Tulum, I realized how privileged I am to have this easy access to amazing healers from so many different places. And when I think about my friends in Chicago or my friends in New York, that access isn't there. And how can we make this more available, knowing what we know now about the positive impacts that psychedelics can have on the brain? So this is, brand new information for many people, but ketamine is the only approved drug for the treatment of depression and anxiety that is in the psychedelic family. It is specifically prescribed for treatment of depression and anxiety, and hopefully for additional things in the future. But when you are screened by a psychiatrist, when you are prescribed this from a pharmacy where the substance, it's very clean, it's very structured very specifically for the way that it dissolves, the way it's absorbed, all of those things. It's very clean, it's very pure, not like anything that you would find, in a party setting or anything like that. So it is available for depression and anxiety. off-label. So ketamine has been around since the 70s. It is an anesthetic. So in really, really, really high doses, you can perform surgery on someone under ketamine. And in smaller doses, it can be therapeutic. As with everything, right? If you take a lot of psilocybin, you're going to have a hero's journey. But if you microdose, you're just going to have a positive everyday effect with that substance as well. And so I work with at-home ketamine therapy where someone goes through a psychiatric evaluation first with a clinician in their state who's licensed in their state. And then myself as an integration guide, I guide them through their first experience. I talk to them about what's going to be happening, what to expect, making sure that they're safe, that they're supported. We take blood pressure. We make sure that there's no contraindications with the medications that someone is on currently in order for them to participate in this type of therapy. And then we integrate. And that part too is something I see lacking so often in even ceremonial settings, to be honest. I think there is a big reason for that too. There is our inner healing intelligence. We are capable of working through a lot on our own by ourselves. But I also see many people who enter the space and are very vulnerable, are unsure, it's very uncertain. And in order to introduce that safety, that container of support, sometimes additional guidance is needed. And that's what I provide specific to this, healing modality with ketamine. So we integrate, we meet together to make sense of their experience, of what they saw, what they felt, the memories that sometimes come up. So it's very much that therapeutic component where you're not just kind of left on your own after having a really impactful experience. For some people, it can be really impactful, all the way to the level of something like ayahuasca. But for some people, it is also much more mild. So, the effects can range pretty significantly, again, person by person. But all of that was to say that, I'm not always one-on-one with someone. So, my own personal energy isn't as much of a concern. And really with everything that I do, even with meditation and with breath work that I guide, I like to think of it from a more, I would say, scientific perspective. I really like to break down what's happening in the brain, what's happening in the body. In those settings, whenever I maybe do, which I still do guide breath work in person at times, yes, we have to be mindful of the container that we share with others, of course. But yeah, it's interesting because I've definitely dabbled, and like I said, I am a Reiki practitioner as well. I've dabbled in the realms of, energy and, the more esoteric foundations and things, but I also love, that accessibility I think is so important to me. And usually where it feels inaccessible for people is because they don't understand what's actually happening, what's in it for them. They don't feel safe. They just don't understand the container and the medicine. So I really like to focus on, structuring it in that way as well.
I really appreciate what you're up to. And as you were talking, a conversation that I had on Monday came to mind because of my recent journey with Wachuma or San Pedro, as some people like to call it. And it was so profound for me. And I have so much respect for these plants, so much respect for the ceremonies. And I took this one very seriously. And like I always tell my students, you're going to get out what you put into it. And I got so much out of this ceremony. It was the dark night of the soul that everyone likes to talk about. Well, I went through the dark night of the soul willingly because it showed me this beautiful medicine, showed me what is possible, what is available for me if I love myself more. Because my work, my work for the last few months has been self-love, has been to see where I haven't been loving myself, the parts of myself that I haven't forgiven. And that was what that ceremony was all about. Louis, if you love yourself, if you truly forgive yourself, if you start to heal those parts of yourself that you haven't looked at since you were in middle school or in elementary school. I mean, it took me back to when I was 5 years old. It was deep. This was one of the deepest journeys I've ever been in. And I was very intentional about it, and I took it very seriously, and I respect the medicine. And I say all of that because I had a conversation on like 2 days after, on Monday, where someone said, well, my parents don't really like this because they think that some people, they use it, they abuse it, and they're just kind of always up here in their head. They're in la la land. And you mentioned the integration. Do you do you think that it's important to take that time off after a ceremony? I know I'm going to be taking some time off to really put into practice all of the things that I got from that journey, because I truly believe that we are our own healers. We are our own teachers. We have all the wisdom inside of us. And it's because we are constantly bombarded with information. We're on our phones. We're frustrated, stressed out. We're doing other things that inhibit our higher states of consciousness, like alcohol, or we're constantly on some sort of even food. You know, even food can be a stimulant that can suppress our higher states of awareness. How important is that integration, and is it maybe more important than actually consuming the medicine? What are your thoughts on that, and how do you help people through that integration program? Because that's something I really want to bring to light. Because there are people who do abuse it. There are people who are in ceremonies every other week or every weekend. And maybe, you know what, who am I to judge? Maybe their life has been harder than mine and they have a lot of stuff to get through, you know, but
Mm-hmm.
what do you feel, how do you feel about that? I'm just curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm smiling ear to ear because that's one of the most important things that we emphasize so much is, look, whether you're by yourself or whether you have someone guiding you, just make sure that it does get integrated. You have to sit with the things that come up. You have to reflect on them. You have to put pen to paper. Journaling on the level of the brain scientifically has been shown to promote that rewiring process of really setting in the insights. You know, a lot of times in psychedelic sessions, what I hear is people get these glimpses of what life could be like. And they come out in this afterglow because I meet with them after, back on Zoom, to integrate, and people say, I just wish, you know, life could be this way forever. And I think that is importantly where some people get stuck, is where you only start to wire yourself that the only place you feel those positive emotions is in a ceremony or is with a substance. And you hit the nail on the head, right? For many people, it's not just psychedelics. For some of us, it's alcohol. That was the case for me, where that, you know, what you repeat gets wired so strongly in the brain. We're such creatures of habit that after a while you associate wine with relaxation. You associate champagne with a celebration, where it's not a birthday if there's not alcohol there. You know, you associate tequila with, you know, spring break. I don't know. These associations like go really deep, and that becomes our mode of escaping life. For some people, it's food, right? Sugar, carbs, they're very comforting because the body is craving them when we're under stress. And after a while, we wire ourselves to say that stress relief comes from eating a donut because I feel that dopamine and serotonin released, and with them comes relief from the stress that I'm feeling. And so with ceremonies, with psychedelics, and exploring different medicines, it could be anything. You know, I agree with you. I see a lot of people who sit in ceremony over and over and over again. I also see a lot of people who have been in therapy for 40 years. And, you know, I'm sorry, but what I'll say to that is I don't think it's working. I think you should try something else. So whatever it is, we all have our different flavors of what we gravitate towards and really start to prefer over time. And it's really just about awareness of who you are, what, you know, gets you that hit, that rush, and creating that boundary between yourself and whatever this is, you know, occasionally having a donut, occasionally having a glass of wine, all of those things have a place in our life. Occasionally going into ceremony for new insights that you'd like to continue gaining, that's great. And that is continuing doing the work. But I am really mindful in supporting people to not get wired for saying I can only feel positive and happy after I've done a ceremony. It's like, let's talk about what you experienced. Let's journal on it. Let's discuss it. Let's talk about how it felt, how you normally feel, and how we can start to shift the everyday life towards that direction where you can start to wake up and feel those feelings in the absence of anything happening to you. A quote that comes to mind is, happiness is wanting what you already have. It's how can we get to that place of just loving where we are right now. And I will say that psychedelics make it easier and more possible. Psychedelics open up that door because psychedelics work on neuroplasticity of the brain. The organ itself starts to become more open to new habits when we are in this more open state that psychedelics facilitate. So I always say that this is an opportunity for us to take advantage of the ceremony that we just went to, and in the coming 1 to 3 days, knowing that we're still going to be in a really malleable state, start to create the life that you want in those days. Start to incorporate a morning routine, start to journal on gratitude more, start to incorporate more movement or healthy food. We naturally start creating those things after a psychedelic experience because we are so open and we had this positive experience. We want to start treating ourselves better and with more care. So it's like, let's establish habits following an experience like that, and then let's work on keeping those habits so that you are wiring yourself for positivity and optimism and all the good things without having to rely on something.
Oh my gosh, you like hit it right on the nail. I love everything that you just shared. And look, let's be honest. This stuff isn't cheap. This can be very depending on where you go, if you have to fly to. I've done several ceremonies. I've done some outside of the country. Those are obviously more expensive. I've done some here in Florida. Those are obviously less expensive, and they range. And just because, by the way, for everyone who's watching, just because a ceremony is super expensive doesn't mean it's going to be amazing. Actually, the most affordable ceremony that I went to was the one that I was recently at, and it was the most incredible. I don't like to compare journeys, but wow, was this ceremony amazing. I got to give it up to the facilitators, and how everyone just banded together in that ceremony was just beautiful. I was literally so held, so protected. I felt so safe, and I'm still riding that wave. And I love what you said about the integration, how your brain is still very malleable after an experience with any sort of plant medicine. So establish that life, really put into practice all of the things that you learned in your journey. And I think that is the thing that is going to help us really heal. It's going to help the medicine really do its work, because people don't just stop experiencing the benefits of the medicine once the ceremony is over. It continues for 3 days, sometimes even a week, and even longer, depending on how much you actually integrate and how much you actually put into practice all the things that you learn in your ceremony. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. We have some comments here. Can anyone please pray for me and the children I'm taking care of? We are lacking food plus some water for drinking. Children are great imitators, so let's give them something great to imitate. Yeah, we're gonna pray for you for sure, Brian. Sending you much love, brother. And yeah, man, you know, as little kids from the age of 0 to 7, we're sponges. So like, give those kids some love. Seek help, brother, and we pray for you, man. We hope that everything works out. And by the way, just know that everything that is happening is not just happening to you; it's also happening for you. Had I not had the upbringing that I had as a child, I would not be where I am at right now. And that's why I think, again, it's so important to talk about our journey and how we got to where we are today. Pain is part of the process. Pain is inevitable. It's going to happen. No one leaves this life scar-free. And it's about how can we alchemize our pain and turn it into something great, turn it into something that we can then use to first serve ourselves, help ourselves, and then if God wants it to be, if so be it, then we can help others. But first, we got to help ourselves, man. That's the biggest message that I want to share with everyone these days.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about, because these ceremonies are, you know, they might be out of people's reach. Let's talk about things that people can do every single day, because I've started on my breathwork journey, and it has been a danger. And I didn't really know what breathwork was. I knew what pranayama was because of yoga, but breathwork is completely different. And I'd like to know what kind of breathwork you do, what kind of breathwork you lead people through, and what are the benefits of breathwork? Because this is something, correct me if I'm wrong, that you can do every single day, right?
Absolutely. I think the first thing to highlight is the term breathwork is so vast, right? I think nowadays when we use it as such, as breath work, we really do mean like this holotropic, biodynamic, continuous breathing. I do guide that, and definitely want to point out how different it is from yogic breathing techniques, from anything you might have experienced in a yoga class. I mean, this is relevant because I'm working on my breathwork course to add to my meditation course. So that should be getting done by the end of the month. So if anyone is interested, just send me a note or give me a follow. I'll be posting about that when it's done. But breathwork has been one of the biggest additions to my coaching practice for so many different reasons. I think there's coaching where you can just talk about what's going on in your life and still get a lot of amazing breakthroughs. But then there's also coaching that you put into practice and actually changing the things about your lifestyle and your body. So the breath is one of the most important things we can start being more aware of, because it's not just something that happens in the background of our life. It's actually a signaling mechanism to the body. And we're usually unaware of this. We breathe the way that we habitually have been breathing. You know, if we're under stress, we take on a certain way of breathing, and then it puts us into stress more. And it's work. It's just like taking your body to the gym. It's just like sitting in meditation, which is taking your mind to the gym. Breath work to me is the establishment of that mind-body connection, because breath is something that happens without us thinking about it, but it's also something that we can bring into our conscious control. And I think that's really intentional. There's very few things in the body that happen automatically that we can also control. Another example is blinking, right? We can blink on command, but typically it's not something that we have to think about. It's the same with breath. With breath, when we focus on it consciously, we can create different states of being. So all the way from, you know, when we breathe in a certain way, focusing on the inhales with more vigorous breathing, for example, you know, breath of fire, skull shining breath from yoga. Obviously, you are familiar with this. Probably many people watching this are. That's breath that's really clearing and energizing. Now, there's ways of breathing in pranayama and yogic breathing, like alternate nostril breathing or left nostril breathing, that are focused on relaxation. That's the way it is because different types of breath act on different parts of our nervous system. This is that really important link of, you know, this is that tie-in of how we can actually start to tap into and control what's happening in the body. We can create more stress when we need it consciously. You know, if I'm going on stage to talk to 100 people, I'm probably going to need a boost of energy, and you can create that just with your breath, you know, in the 3 to 5 minutes before going on stage. And on the contrary, you know, if something just happened and I'm trying to calm myself down, I can also do that by way of the breath. So that whole library of breath practices right there is already so vast on its own. But now what sounds like you have been practicing, what I've been practicing and now guiding as well over the past couple of years, is breath work. This is where we actually go to work while we lie down and breathe. The container is about 45 minutes to an hour long, typically. I guide these both in person and virtually as well, because again, accessibility is so important to me. And this, let's say, hour-long container is where we go on a journey of really self-exploration and shedding the stress that's happening in the body. So this type of breath work, continuous, again, different names for it, right? Continuous breathing, biodynamic, holotropic, psychedelic breath, DMT breathing, all of these are ways to describe this continuous process of breathing where we're actually experiencing emotional release from stress, from anxiety. A lot of people sleep amazing after it. So there's a number of different things that are happening to us when we're in that state of continuous conscious breathing. And one of the ways and the reasons I use breath work as well is because I work with psychedelics, but they're not accessible to everyone. And even with at-home therapy, there are medications that someone is on. Someone might have certain conditions that prevent them from taking a substance, you know, an exogenous substance, something that you take externally. But we can actually create those states of tapping in deeper into the layers of ourselves, into our childhood, into our subconscious, just through the breath alone. And that's what's so amazing about it. This area of healing has been around since about 1970. And for anyone who, you know, this piqued their interest, maybe you are someone who is super interested in diving deep within yourself, but you're not able to take psychedelics or don't want to. maybe breath work could be that path for you. And the book is called Holotropic Breath. I'll post it in the comments here, by Stanislav Grof. He is who is considered kind of the founder of this whole branch. He's researched both breathwork and psychedelics throughout his very long career at this point. So he's super prolific, and we know that through the breath alone, again, we actually are our own best healer. We can use it to tap into those states, those really profound, insightful states. So I don't know, have you had, any experience with tapping into those parts of you, even just with the breath alone?
So many, and it's interesting because the last time that I did a breathwork session, I had such a release, and it was release, and it's I think just as effective as doing these psychedelics that we were talking about. So
Absolutely.
French as cold shower and breathwork. Also, if you couple it with cold therapy, it's incredible. It has a lot of benefits for the body. It's very healing. I do breath work every single day, twice a day for 20 minutes. I do the Wim Hof breathing, where it's 30 inhales and exhales. And then you hold your exhale out. And for me, what breath work does, and I love what you said about it being the link between the mind and the body. I think for me, what breath work does is it illuminates. It's like a light shining into the areas of your body where these emotions are stored, where they haven't been fully expressed yet. So the flashlight is the breath, and the key to opening up to unlocking these emotions is love. So being in your heart, going from here, from being up here to being here, is also super important. Is that something that you teach people? Because that's another message that I want to start sharing more with people about. We're so much in our heads. We're taught, going back to school and our programming as little kids, we're taught to always be up here, the most logical person, smartest person. But really, what I'm noticing right now, the message that I'm getting is to be more in my heart. Now, is that something that you teach your students or your clients? Because if we spend all of our lives up here, this is where all the stress, this is where all the anxiety is starting to build up. Because, you show me someone who's depressed, I'll show you someone who's always thinking about the past. You show me someone who's anxious, I'll show you someone who's always thinking about the future. So at the end of the day, what I want to know from all the healers that I have here on Healing Talks is, what is the end goal? What are you trying to accomplish really with all of this, Marina? With everything that you're up
Yeah.
to?
Oh, I love that question. So just to quickly talk about what you mentioned with what you experienced with the body and breath work, one of my favorite quotes that is relevant here is, the body is a map. And when we're able to tap into, right, different parts of us, notice where tension lives, consciously bring our awareness there so that we can reduce it, we also start to feel better, not just in the mind, but in the body as well. Oftentimes, chronic conditions are what's called psychosomatic, which means they're brought on simply by our habitual rumination and thinking patterns and the hormones of stress. So oftentimes we'll develop, an ulcer, but if the doctor looks at it and tries to find the origin, or, something food related, we can't find it. Well, it's just a way that stress is manifesting for us. And what is stress? It's the way that our brain perceives our life and the things of our day-to-day existence. And so I love that you said it, you feel like it shines a light on different parts of you. And I think from the yoga tradition, this is where the chakra system, our energy center system, starts to make so much sense. It's actually not esoteric. It's related to glands in the body. It's related to the endocrine system and the places where we produce certain hormones that then signal different things in the body being turned on or off. So a lot of these things, we used to think of them as, maybe woo-woo or not proven by science, but now it's like we can, with science, overlay what's actually happening, like with our energy, with our physical body, with our endocrine system, with our nervous system, how our heart responds. So all of these things are completely interrelated. And to answer your question of what is the goal, I think in the introduction I said my goal is to bring people just back to wholeness. And what's interesting is that the word holotropic, which is the breath work that I guide, and I posted the name of the book here in the comments, holotropic means coming into wholeness. So holos, from the Greek word, means wholeness. And so this type of healing modality focuses on really reminding us and bringing ourselves back to balance of wholeness of all the different parts of us. So sometimes I think we have a tendency, like you said, to, by way of our societal conditioning, focus on physical health or what we look like, you know, going to the gym a lot, or getting a lot done, being really goal-driven, very oriented towards analytical thinking. And so we start to prefer and really hone in on certain parts of us and forget others. And maybe that's where those conditions or whatever is happening for you start to develop, is those parts of yourself that over time you start to disconnect from and don't really tap into. And I think mind-body practices are such an important reminder. You know, oftentimes after breathwork or after anything, after meditation, after yoga, I often hear people having these insights of like, wow, I realized I need to get more massages, or wow, I realized I need to do this for me, or I never realized how tired I am today, but I'm actually really tired. These practices shine a light on what might be lacking for us. And when we fill in those gaps, when we get to know ourselves better, when we start to care for ourselves fully, like our entire being, emotional, spiritual, you know, social, all the things, we come back to wholeness. And when you're whole, you're definitely not going to be feeling depression or anxiety. You're going to be coming from a place of more empowerment, more personal power, more ease, more relaxation. That is, I think, the natural state that we're meant to be living with. We have adaptations that allow us to live under stress and under pressure, and with depression, the body is very resilient. But those aren't the ways that I think we're meant to be feeling every single day, as many of us have been. So,
Yeah, yeah. Do you think, just out of curiosity, do you think it's by design? This is getting a
um,
little conspiracy theory, but I had to ask because I'm of the belief that is a little bit by design, just because of the way society's been structured. I mean, you just see, if you have half a brain and you take a step back and you see the pharmaceutical companies, how they're making a killing off of it. I mean, it's called the Food and Drug Administration for a reason.
mm,
You know, you got the food that's got everyone jacked up on sugar and coffee and caffeine, and you know, we're such a go society. The television's always keeping us on our toes. There's never any good news on. It's all fear based. And then you
yeah.
have drugs. Okay, well, you're feeling anxiety, you feel depression, here, take a pill. And you know, that's just gonna mask the feeling, and we're not getting to the root cause of what's actually going on, and we're not actually healing. So
Yeah.
healing is, I think, done by us. We use things like plant medicine and breath work and journaling and meditation in order to tap into ourselves and to heal ourselves. And people like you, angels like you, are out here to guide us into these altered states of consciousness in order to get to know ourselves better. Would you say that's true?
I think there's a huge difference and a distinction that needs to be made between healing and coping. And I do
Yeah.
think we start to cope through lifestyle, alcohol, food, drugs that we become addicted on. And I do think, you know, going back to what you said earlier, I think there's a lot more things working against us because business has realized how susceptible people are. And now there's a lot of industries that actually exploit our shortcomings as humans, right? Think about casinos, think about porn industry, think about, you know, making the most addictive foods possible, you know, just laced with sugar in every single thing, including ketchup. You know, it's just so it's important to become aware of and just know that there's a lot of things that are more difficult and working against us. News, media, just the way that, you know, we are addicted to our phones because it is an addiction just like any other. That dopamine hit wires us to want social media, to scroll, to see what else is out there. So all of these things are ways that, you know, businesses do play on the things that get us stuck and get us, you know, sucked in to certain ways of being. And so, yes, today it takes a little bit more work initially to get through that. And, you know, on the contrary, though, the positive side is that we do have so many beautiful healing modalities that are now available to us that weren't even before the pandemic, right? I think the silver lining of the pandemic was first shining a light on all the things in our society that are broken. And secondly, it's making more accessible options for people. Virtual options, again, is something that's so important to me. I do drop-in breathwork twice a month now. Again, you can find out more on my page. It's bringing the wellness to your home, to your space. You know, sometimes people aren't comfortable going to a yoga class or going to a breathwork class, and all of that is valid. So just be gentle with yourself, meet yourself where you're at, try different things, and feeling better is so possible. It might just take a little bit of that uncomfortable habit building. That does happen with any new habit at the beginning, you know, maybe 2 weeks to a month. But after that, we start to crave these things. Again, we're, you know, taking advantage of how susceptible the body is. As soon as you start feeding it health, it starts to crave that. So
One thing I would love to leave the viewers with is what your routine is like. Because like I keep mentioning about this talk, in order to help heal others, we got to start with ourselves.
yeah.
So I'm curious what your daily routine is like. What are you doing for yourself? What is your self-love practice like, Marina?
Yeah, that's so important. And thanks for asking that, because, you know, it's really something that I've been working more and more on personally, because I realize, you know, sometimes I recommend people do things that I don't necessarily do consistently. And so meditation, thankfully, has always been with me, at least on a small amount. Today, I meditate for 20 minutes in the morning and 20 at night. It's my Joe Dispenza AM PM meditation. Now, when I can, you know, I try for 2 or 3 times a week. I do his longer meditation, so an hour 15. And if you have a chance to give yourself that time, an hour-long meditation is incredibly profound for the next day. For me, I feel such a relief. I'm so much more clear-headed waking up the next morning if I had a chance to do that long stretch of meditating the day before. I do yoga at least 3 times a week. I do exercise 3 times a week as well. It's really important to me, again, not just to, you know, start to prioritize one thing or the other. You know, it is strength, it is flexibility. Both of them are important to me. In the morning when I wake up, after I've meditated for 20 minutes, I actually do face yoga. So it's one of my new favorite things that I do. So I jade roll. I roll out my jaw muscle, because it's one of the places in the body where we tend to hold a lot of stress. And then something else I do is, you know, it's an exercise where you just kind of hold like this and you go along the line of your eyebrow, and it's just relaxing these muscles here that, again, you know, throughout the day, stress and tension builds. So I make sure and take care of all of this, you know, this part too around the cheeks. You can just, you know, go on YouTube, look up face yoga. It's really great because it has a number of benefits. It just feels really good. It makes you look younger. And then all those muscles that we usually constrict when we're under stress, that just becomes the expression that we take on. And then it actually also subconsciously acts on how we feel. So if we frown for an hour, we're going to come out of that hour tangibly feeling stress, as opposed to if we smile for an hour, we're going to feel totally different. So these things work on the, again, mind and body connection. And then I have my lemon water, you know, I do my yoga or exercise depending on the day. I have started coloring. So I have an adult coloring book, and it is my new mindfulness plus creativity exercise. I recently realized that there's nothing that I do that is specifically focused on cultivating more creativity. So for me, that's been the coloring book, and then I've been taking more salsa lessons, which is just good, again, for brain coordination. Yeah, so just a few things that I'm focused on.
That's a lot. I mean, and you know, for people who are listening to this right now, think, well, Marina, you have like life as an entrepreneur, you live in Tulum, you're this digital nomad. I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Listen, you guys, you can. You got to make the time. I'm done.
You are what you prioritize. And
Exactly.
yeah, it's 24 hours in the day that we are all given. So I agree with you, you know, and thank you for touching on that, because definitely I hear that often. Well, that's accessible to you, it's not accessible to me. I think it's definitely more challenging to parents, for sure. You know, for anyone with a chronic condition, for anyone who may be a caregiver of someone else, all of that is valid. I see you guys. That is you. I hear you. And in those moments, it's actually even more important to be taking care of yourself so that you can take care of others. So that's, another reason why you did mention how much of it I do for myself. I realize that I hold a lot of space throughout my days on my calls, and especially after I started seeing more clients who do struggle with more intense mental health issues, it started taking a lot more of my energy. And so I really needed to do even more to replenish myself after that. So that's another reason, that is in place.
Yeah, for sure. I used to put my classes so close to each other. And so I'd be rushing class to the next, and I'd show up to the next class and I'd be super stressed out. And then I realized one day my teaching does not start when I get to a student's house or when I get to a studio. My teaching actually started when I woke up that morning. Did I do my meditation? Did I do my breath work that morning? Did I do my own practice? That's when I started to teach, because we really have to live what we teach. What we practice is what we teach. It's our life. It's a lifestyle that we're living. We're not just going from one job, clocking in and clocking out, and then forgetting about it until the next day. We really have to live this stuff, the work that we do, because it is a lifestyle. So if you want to be more healthy, if you want to feel more connected, if you want to reduce stress and anxiety, please reach out to Marina. She's your go-to person. She is in Tulum, Mexico. So I've seen a couple of comments about Mexico, and some people are going to Mexico and stuff. Please do not stalk Marina. She's a very busy person. She's a lot of
Totally. I
content.
do love to connect though, truly. And I'm most active on Instagram. So, I won't share other needs because we're obviously all here on Instagram. I guess unless you post it on YouTube though. In that case, my website is someofallpositive.com, just like my Instagram handle. And my email is marina@someofallpositive.com.
Some of all positive. And like I said earlier, I'm going to be condensing this hour-long interview into 1 minute that will encapsulate everything that we talked about today. And then I'm going to be posting the entire interview on my YouTube channel. So if you join us late and you want to see the entire interview, we talked about everything from psychedelics to holotropic breath work to journaling to even coloring, and why that's important to reduce our stress levels and to really learn to tap back into ourselves. There's so many things that are against us: the food industry, the drug industry, the media. All of it is contributing to the high levels of stress and anxiety that we are experiencing right now as a whole society. So please make sure to hit up Marina, Some of All Positive. I'm going to be tagging her after I post this. And anything else that you want to share for the people?
Just, I think, what you said, you are your own best healer. We talked about a lot of different things. So you might be thinking, oh my gosh, where do I even start? Just listen to your intuition. For many of us, we already know what we need to be doing. We're just not doing it yet. So just start there, without taking on some of these big things or trying something new or going to your first yoga class. Like, start where you are, just be gentle with yourself, accept, wherever your journey is at this point. And yeah, it really is a beautiful journey that we just get to go on for our entire life. You and I are still on it, and we now guide others. So it's really beautiful to start to explore that for yourself.
Yeah, and I also want to say, if anyone wants to, that's also something you mentioned throughout the interview, was doing more online stuff.
Mm.
I'm also getting into that space of teaching meditation. I do programs. I also do breath work. I'm getting certified this year in breath work. I
Nice.
do Thai body work. So if anyone wants to reach out to me as well, I'm also in the space of healing or helping others heal, guiding them through their healing journey. So if any of you guys are here in Miami and want to meet in person, or if you're not, but you still want to get to know what I offer as far as healing modalities are concerned, please feel free to reach out to me as well. Hey, Mio, what's up? Mio, I've been meaning to talk to you, my friend. I'm reading this book right now called Keys to the Kingdom. Boom! Like that book. And I love what you just said about you gotta tune in with yourself and know when you're ready, because Mio recommended this book to me about a year ago, and I just started reading it like 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, and I wasn't ready a year ago. I would pick it up and I would read a few pages, and this stuff would just go over my head, and I was like, Mio, you don't know what you're talking about. And yeah, what's up, Mio? And now I'm reading Keys to the Kingdom, and it is blowing my mind. But I'm ready now. Life had to kick my ass a little bit, and that's what I was saying earlier about the challenges. Sometimes these things are good, So if you're going through a
Yeah.
tough time now, just know that you're not alone. You have guides like Marina, myself. Mio's also a self-love coach. She does retreats.
Mm.
She works with a teacher named Dr. Isis Fuqua, who's an Egyptian mysticist. I also
Um,
do retreats in Egypt. So you have people, you have support, you have a community. You're not at it alone. But just know that if you're going through something difficult right now, that you will come out of it on the other side. Just reach out to one of us, and we'll help guide you along your journey. And we love you. So thank you guys for
mm.
joining us. This is going to be it for Healing Talks today. I'm going to be posting a little clip of it later on, and the entire interview is going to go on my YouTube channel. So please go to Luis in Motion, actually youtube.com/Luis in Motion, so you can see the entire hour-long interview. Thank you, Marina, so much.
Thank you.
In Miami, please reach out, and if I'm ever in Tulum, I'll make sure to reach out and make sure we meet up in person again.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, everyone. This was such a joy.
Cheers. Peace, everyone.